Only 1 in 10,000 apps ever become profitable. And that's not just a scary stat, it's reality. I've been building products for well over a decade, working with companies making millions in revenue and plenty that have just crashed and burned. And in this video, I'm going to share why most apps fail and the 3 biggest things that you can do to beat the odds. So think about that for a second. Out of 10,000 apps, only 1 ever becomes commercially successful. A recent Gartner report said that 99.99% of apps fail, leaving only 0.01% actually succeeding. And according to RevenueCat, only 17% of apps ever make more than $1,000 on their platform, with the median income being $50. That doesn't even come close to covering development costs, let alone all of the marketing and everything else needed to run a successful business. So if the odds are so heavily stacked against us, then what is the point in even doing this in the first place? You know, the likelihood of you releasing an app and having done no validation and no marketing for that thing just to be successful immediately is basically 0%. But rather than be disheartened by that, I think it's more important to look at the numbers and realize that this is the harsh reality of producing software. So realize this and think about what you need to do instead to combat the problem. So the first one is validation. And this, in my opinion, is the most important step and the one that most people skip out on. And I think the reason people skip out on this is because they're not really sure what validation actually looks like. So for me, it means putting up a landing page or running multiple landing page tests against many different ideas and seeing which one succeeds the most. You can drive traffic to those landing pages through ads or through social media marketing, and then whichever one converts the best, choose that product to move forward with. You can also look at negative reviews from existing applications as well to get an understanding of what are the real problems that users actually need to be solved. I think the worst thing that you can do is just come up with an idea in your head and assume that that's going to be a problem for someone. The likelihood of it being a problem for someone else just because you perceived it's a problem for you is actually really slim. Although that is advice people tend to put out a lot. You know, if you solve your own problem, you solve someone else's problem too. So before you jump into hundreds of hours building a product, actually validate that users are willing to use it in the first place. Market the product as if it already exists, because if you do that and you can't get customers, I guarantee that is the quickest way to turn you off a bad idea and move you on to something that's likely going to be more successful. The second is marketing. And this sort of goes hand in hand with validation, because during the initial validation step, you're going to have to learn which marketing techniques are effective for your product. That means understanding where it is that your users actually hang out. It could be on Reddit, it could be on Facebook groups, it could be on a random forum somewhere, and actually being willing to spend money in finding those users. You could run paid ads, or you could pay creators to do videos for you, or you can create those videos yourself, depending on the kind of split that you've got available in terms of time or money. But what most people see as marketing is just making a few posts on Reddit or Hacker News and realizing when they get no engagement, they just say, well, the idea was a waste of time. And then suddenly you've wasted hundreds of hours building a product just to do 2 posts on Reddit and then call it a day. Like, why would you be so willing to waste that much time? But this is what most people do, and it's crazy in my opinion. And finally, the last one is to get to a point of iterative feedback as soon as possible. This is why a lot of people say spend as little time as possible building the product, because the work doesn't even really start until you get a product in production and start speaking to customers. That's when you can start to get feedback and then iterate on your product based on that user feedback. So don't go spending 6 to 12 months building a product in the dark, not knowing what people actually want. Instead, focus on a single feature or a couple of features. Make sure the product is actually likable, usable. People these days say minimal lovable product than viable product. So focus on getting those few features out, then start speaking to customers. And this is when you can really shape the product into solving a real user problem. You will never solve user problems if you don't actually speak to users. So coming back to validation again, find out in the validation phase if you can even get feedback from customers, if you can get people to speak to you. Because if you can't, then there's no point even getting to the third step in the first place. So while a 0.01% chance of success can look bleak, there's so many things that you can be doing to drastically increase those odds. Good validation, marketing, and iterative feedback mean that you don't spend months building a product that nobody wants.